How does aging really affect a rum? Now, aging in rum is kind of a little bit of a complex subject because it's to a certain extent way more complex than whiskey. From what I can gather, I'm not a huge whiskey fan. I don't really follow whiskey, but I'm going to bring this from the rum point of view. Now, with whiskey, I've seen a lot of brands that are, when you say you buy like a 10-year-old and maybe a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old, the 16-year-old is simply the same whiskey that has been aged for longer. That's not necessarily true with rum, because what you'll find with a lot of rums, in fact, most big brand rums, that actually let's take El Dorado, for instance, they're a prime example of this. You know, we can go, you would naturally think, and I thought this for a long, long time until I really dived in, you would naturally think that these rums are the progression. You know, you kind of think, well, actually, you know, they start off, they distill, they take that same liquid, they age it. You've got the 3-year-old, they age it, that same rum that comes off the still for another 2 years. We've got the 5, and then we've got the 8, and we go up to the 12 and the 15. You know, if you are just coming into rum, you'd kind of think, well, it's just the same rum, so this is really easy to compare. Like, how does that compare another sort of 12 years down the line? From what I know about whiskey, that is really easy to compare because, as I say, I think, and I've seen most whiskies. If you're a whiskey lover, let us know, you know, what whiskies don't, what whiskies do reblend. My whole point is that actually most brands are different blends. They contain different blends. Let's just take El Dorado here, for instance. They are very famous for having their 3 stills. Another one, you know, most of them are, to be fair. You know, Appleton have got different stills. St. Lucia have got 4 stills. Richard Seal, Foursquare have got, you know, different stills. So the whole point being is they've got these 3 stills at El Dorado. And for various different rums at different ages, yes, the rums will have aged in barrels, that we're not denying that, but they will use different blends of those stills to kind of then age up. So my whole point being, we cannot, in truth, know from a rum's journey how it really does affect the rum. But there is a little bit of a caveat, and why I'm quite excited, because as you may have seen on my other channel, I am championing up UK rum. And this is not a UK rum loving video. I'm just talking about how aging will affect a rum. But the whole reason I'm excited is because UK British rum is brand new. None of the distillers, none of the producers here have got an abundance of liquid just lying down aging to kind of blend different barrels together, different stills together. We've got none of that. We haven't got the 3 stills that we can kind of just blend up, that produce very different rums and then use different casks. The money's not there, the cash flow's not there, and they are very, very new. So the whole exciting bit for me is, and I've just got these because it was right next to the bar when out, but I could pick on like a whole different variety of other British rums here. The whole exciting is that is just literally the 3-year-old version of that. And then there will be I've tasted the nearly 4-year-old version, and there's be a 5-year-old coming, and hopefully, you know, there'll be the 10-year-old. That's their sort of game plan for that. But this is why I'm excited, because you can chart that rum's journey and really get to know how aging does affect a barrel, and that's why I'm super excited. Now, I won't spoil the tasting and review video on my rum reviews channel, but I just want to go, you know, this is what I've got in front of me. I'm really not going to spoil the video, but they are like chalk and cheese. Absolutely chalk and cheese. I wouldn't even pick them as the same rum, let alone the same distillery, let alone, you know, the same area. I just wouldn't do it. They are chalk and cheese. There's a little nod to that rum inside there that's been aged for 3 years, but not, I think I'd need to go a lot further down a rum journey to really pick it. It's just completely and utterly changed the rum. But what would you expect to happen after a rum has been in a barrel? How would you expect that rum to change? Now let's just talk about sort of your traditional oak, bourbon, ex-bourbon cask, traditional there. And we can kind of plot a little bit of a journey there. Because what you'd kind of, or what I've certainly found, is that when rum sort of sits for a year, 18 months in an ex-bourbon cask, is sort of, it initially picks up the sort of woody vibes, but then as you go a bit further, the more vanilla comes out into that rum. And this is just a huge generalization, but I would say the longer it is sat in those sort of barrels, the more kind of vanilla and caramel notes I get. They do kind of accentuate, whereas the wood hits you to start off with and then sort of tapers out after sort of like 4 or 5 years. It sort of really begins to smooth out, maybe longer in some cases, because some distilleries will be using older barrels, for example. So with an older barrel that have been used time and time again, you know, it's kind of it's struggling to really pick out those characteristics. And certainly what I've noticed, the longer that goes down the journey, especially kind of talking about Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, those kind of places, those kind of rums, the longer it goes down the journey, the more fruit, especially tropical fruit, comes out in the rum. It could even be sort of your mixed fruit, your sultanas, your raisins, your dates, that kind of vibe as well. But the longer it sits in a barrel, they sort of come out. But it does literally depend on that barrel. Just want to take a very quick moment of your time to thank today's show sponsor, which is Stratford Soda. It's an ongoing long-term partnership because I flipping well love these mixes and I want to help them become big time. We've got 4 in the range at the moment. We've got the tropical, we've got the spiced, we've got the citrus and the hedgerow. I talk more about the flavours on the other channel, Steve the Barman Extra. So go and check that out, and there will be loads of cocktail inspiration dropping with these very, very soon. So go and check them out. But if you want to try these for the very first time, if you're in the UK, we're giving you 50% off your very first order, the taster packs and the party packs. There's a link in the description, so jump down there below, click it, and it will auto populate at checkout. And I promise you, if you don't like them, well, tough, because you're flipping well will, so go and try them. Now I've noticed, especially in the UK, quite a few people are using virgin oak. Now virgin oak literally hasn't been used before, so of course, when a rum goes into those, the very first thing it's going to do is pick up that huge hint of wood, that huge hint of aging. So in actual fact, it's kind of tricking your mind that the rum is a lot older than what it actually is. We've kind of noticed, and I've kind of seen things where experienced rum drinkers have drunk a virgin oak rum that has only been aged for 6 months, and they've kind of picked it at 8-10-year-old rum. So this, you know, it all depends on the barrel. And that's without getting into the new sort of things that are happening with port, with sherry, with Madeira, I've seen wine casks and all that sort of stuff. Let's just take port, for instance, because I've had a few port rums. Sherry could be the obvious one, but let's do port. I've tried, I think it's a year, maybe an 18 month, that have been in port for 18 months. And I really didn't like it because it was just too winey-fied for me, too dominant in red fruits. But there's a few other things I've noticed, and this is indicative, it's a posh word for me, indicative especially of some of the British UK rums, because we have got a few of these rums that have got on, and actually even I've tasted unaged Jamaican rums like this as well. And unaged, it's unfair to say British rums. I've tasted rums from all around the world that do have this trait. This kind of industrial, kind of ethanol, solventy vibe to an unaged rum. Now, when that does go into a barrel, it kind of mellows that out and you lose that. You might have sort of a nod to it very, very slightly, but the rum, what the barrel will do was just kind of like smooth out the rum and make it way more mellow. But is that actually better? And this is where I want you guys to get involved straight away, because I want you to comment in below about whether you prefer unaged rums versus aged rums. Can you sip unaged rums? Because what I've noticed here, I am quite happy sipping unaged rums. And in the main, when we're talking British rums, unaged would literally be unaged. But actually, when we're talking about rums from the rest of the world, you know, some rums can be 18 months, 2 years old, maybe even up to 2.5. It's only really when you see 3-year-old rums that it starts to become an age statement on them. No one really, I've never seen a 2-year-old rum. I can't think of a 2-year-old rum. So actually, unaged rum in a worldwide sense can be a 2-year-old. But this is my point. With the way rum is evolving, with the way distillers are creating new yeast strains and using different stills to create different effects and different results, I really love sipping and drinking unaged rums. I want to dispel this myth that all rum has to be aged, because I think it is absolute nonsense these days. And there's two kind of skills at play here, because when a rum is aged, it's then, yes, you've got the distiller's skills, and a distiller and a blender may be the same person. They may have different people. The smaller the company, it'll be the same person doing it. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you've got rums that are aged in different barrels, that is all solely down to a blender's skill set, blending different rums together to get their desired rum. And if they have a shocker, you're going to get a terrible rum. Whereas unaged rums, for me, the thing I love, it really showcases the distiller's skill and the skill in distilling, because you could get some really terrible unaged rums, and you could get some absolutely mind-blowing unaged rums off distills. And there are some, I'd say it's about 50-50 in Britain at the moment. Some off distill are, and some are, wow, how did you do that? And I'm talking undosed or no additives or anything like that. And it's just this whole, it comes down to yeast, it comes down to the base ingredient, molasses or sugar cane or dehydrated sugar cane, or cane sugar, honey, whatever you want, cane honey, whatever you want to call it. But all these different, and the water that is being used as well. You can have regional variances with water. Obviously Cornish water is going to be better than water from the Peak District or the Lake District. Sorry, but all these kind of variances really come into play with unaged rum. So don't just jump to the conclusion that 15-year-old is going to be better than that literally, 4-hour-old. I think it might have been rested for a few days or whatever, but it's essentially, I enjoy both. I absolutely love both. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I just want to dispel that myth that you do not have to drink aged rum. Aged rum is not the be all and end all these days. Actually, for me, a lot of the fun stuff is unaged coming off the still.